we made it. What's going on? Hello, everyone. It's me, DJ. I'm your host. Let me get ready. Welcome to the Streamcast. It's Monday. I've missed everyone. We're here to have conversations to bring awareness and encourage acceptance. We want to break stigmas and create opportunities on issues of mental health, disability, and trauma. And we made it through another week. I'm so excited. Last week, I took a break, but we're back this week. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. I hope everybody's feeling great, had a great weekend. Visual descriptor, I'm a female Latina with brunette with silver streaks, olive skin, brown eyes, big smile, and I'm going to say a tulip red just for the sake of tonight's show. Positive affirmations background. I got my neon lips and my geometric fox, and well, everyone, welcome. And if you're new, you're checking us out, I've got a great guest. I'm so excited to have this conversation, but first, make sure you subscribe, you share, you give me some support because we really appreciate it. And I just want to keep the show going. Really want to bring some important messages every week. And today we're talking about something that I'm not really familiar with, and I'm really excited to get lots of information from our amazing guest. I just want to say a quick thank you to Restream, always a big acknowledgement to our Ukrainian friends and the people as the devastation continues. And we really keep you in our hearts and our minds. And thank you for powering this live stream tonight. I hope everyone's doing well. I am excited to talk about tonight's topic again. I have an amazing guest. I don't like to make my guest wait. So we're going to bring her out and chat. When whoever's here, say hi. Tell me where you're checking in from. Let us know what you know about Parkinson's disease. Is it affected you in any way? Someone in your family? Have you known someone? So I'm just curious about the stories out there as we continue tonight's conversation. So let's go ahead and introduce our guest. Tonight's guest, we are learning with Carol Chiang. She's owner of Evolving Homes. She's an occupational therapist, a Parkinson specialist who's certified in Parkinson's wellness recovery. She's also certified in an aging in place expert, and I'm excited to find out all about this. She's also a realtor, so I just love how she's taking all her interests, her passions, and she's making a business, such an amazing entrepreneur, really changing lives. And this is why this is so near and dear to my heart, and this show really is so special to me. She has a private practice that specializes in treating complex neurological and orthopedic cases. She's really passionate about exercise. She really wants to promote well-being and aging in place. And Carol's here to help us understand the conversation and really how we can provide assistance and really encourage our friends or family member community with Parkinson's to have more independent lives and live with beauty and confidence in their home. So I love that. I can't wait. Carol, welcome. Hi. I'm so excited. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I love what you're all about.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's so vital. Everybody is getting older. We're all having to, either know somebody who is aging in place or a parent that you're trying to keep at home. It is something that everybody should be talking about, and definitely everybody has questions about.
Yes, I definitely do. I'm so excited to know a little bit about what Parkinson's is, and just talk a little bit about just the basics, right? Maybe some of the normal signs and symptoms, and you can give us all the scoop. And let's say hi to the chat. We want to say hi to the chat. Hi, Mackenzie. Say hello to Carol. Everyone say hi to Carol. Juana, thank you for being here. We appreciate your support in tonight's conversation. She's looking forward to this one. I know I am. And Mohammed, hello. Hello, how are you? Let's see. All right.
And bring on your questions, because that's how people learn.
Yes. I will have lots of questions for you. So don't you worry. That's my job as a host. Keep the conversation going. But we both know that an hour goes by so quick. And there's just not enough time to share all this information that you have. Jenny, thank you for being here. Jenny's been on my show. We talk about invisible disabilities. We talk about neurological. We talk about What do we, Jenny, invisible, what else do we talk about? Jenny, send me some information. Oh goodness, I've got lupus on my mind and Lyme disease with her. So we've had some conversations coming and going. And so all these kinds of topics about different disabilities and these different medical diagnoses that, you know, we can find in our communities and in our loved ones, and just often closer than we think, right? I've realized that oftentimes people aren't very forthcoming with their information of their medical diagnoses, but it's really just important to create a community and resources and just really meet people where they're at. So
yeah, I totally agree.
thank you. I want to know about you and how you got to where you're passionate about Parkinson's and real estate and how you came up with this amazing business.
Oh my gosh, so many parts. You know, when everything just kind of, you start here, and they all just kind of go together. So let's see. So I'm an occupational therapist, and I worked in inpatient rehab. I did spinal cords and strokes and, you know, orthopedics, all kinds of surgeries and stuff. And that's really fun stuff, but you're not in the real situation. You're in a hospital. It's not real. It's everything's flat, everything's perfect. Let's pretend this, let's pretend that. And so when my hospital bought a home health company, I was like, yes, I'm in, because I love to see that problem solving, that real life challenge. So, you know, what's going on when you're trying to, you know, get a wheelchair through this tiny little door, or, you know, what's the real thing that goes on in the house, because people will explain it to you so differently than when you arrive and you find out that they live on a boat or, you know, things that they just omitted.
Wow.
So yeah, so I did home health for a really long time, 12 years. And I loved it. It was great. We had plenty of time. It was cheaper to keep a patient in the house than it was to keep them in a facility. So they gave us a lot of free reign. I could see a stroke patient 3 times a week, 6 months, you know, take care of every need that they had, and, you know, discharge them to the, you know, to their families, and everybody was happy. They all got what they needed. But Medicare changed reimbursement models a few years ago. And when that happened, you know, the first thing to go were visits. And so now you had a lot less visits to play with, and what you could do was limited. So instead of, you had to do something that was outcome based, they needed to measure that. But what patients really needed at the time was help to get on Amazon and order equipment, or, you know, how do I arrange my house, or, you know, can you help me call a contractor to install correctly? How do I know if I'm doing the right thing? So
Right.
these things are not covered services, but they're the things that they need. And it's so frustrating to be in there and, you know, not being able to help them where they're at. So you know, and I started thinking about this idea, especially because the other piece to this is that you get these little islands where people are in the hospital and then people get home health. And so the way that Medicare works, there's no bridge between those islands. So those people in the hospital they can't go to the house, and the home health guys don't visit them in the hospital. So there's no talking in between there. There's just guessing. So they're guessing based on what they're hearing. Well, maybe you're going to need this. Maybe you're going to need that. You know, let's go ahead and order you like one of these, right? And those will all go to the house, and they still don't know what they're doing. And they wait until they say, okay, just wait until home health gets there before you install the bars. Well, you know what inevitably happens is the home health clinician rings the doorbell and everyone's going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? They're so overwhelmed. The patient hasn't had a shower in days. They're like, they told us to wait for you. And the home health clinician's like, listen, I have a job. They already gave me this huge evaluation. I got to check all these boxes first before I can even do anything, right? I can't help you with any of these things. And as people have probably realized post-pandemic, it is really hard to get a contractor at your house in any kind of within a week or 2 weeks or so. So, you know, you're fighting against all of these things not being prepared, trying to accommodate this, trying to satisfy Medicare requirements. So that's why I said, you know, even if it's private pay services, we have to be able to offer people the choice, the option to plan ahead. Because I do not like to be stressed and,
I love that.
put against the wall. Yeah, because,
It's
we
so
live
important
in,
to plan and prepare.
yeah,
Yes.
well, we
And I
live in
like how you give
Florida.
options. Yeah, options. Well, yeah, we have a lot of
Well, I was going to
older.
say it's a little bit like hurricane planning, don't you think? If you wait until the last minute and you try to go to Home Depot to buy a generator, you're out of luck. It's not happening,
There's
right?
nothing
Or
there.
you're going to
Right.
pay 6 times as much to get, your windows boarded up. But if you have a plan, you know what you're going to do. You can pick the right person in advance, right? You can get the equipment exactly what you need. So that's the service that I offer to people, which is just trying to plan ahead and really looking bigger, not just grab bars, but looking at like, what do you need to function? Are you, do you need strength? Do you need to be able to call for help? What's the caregiver going to do? Who's going to take care of you when they're at work? Who's going to do this like long term? There are so many questions that people don't think about asking until they're in the situation, which is a tough place to be making decisions.
Yes. All this sounds all too familiar. I mean, this could be so many different things, right? Like we know medically, this could be so many things and so many people going through those same exact fears and concerns and struggles and so many question marks and unknown. And Jenny's already left a few comments, and Jemmy and Jenny have lots of conversations about Medicare, and she's a wheelchair user and she needs care, so she has her own podcast, so she talks about kind of similar things of how difficult it is when she was waiting for approval for this, or why don't they understand that, and really the frustration is just so all too common, I feel like, across the board from everyone. And I hear often such the disconnect between service providers and who's paying and what that covers and really what does that mean and how they pick it apart, and really leaves the individual and the caregivers just frustrated, exhausted, just feeling overwhelmed.
It's really confusing and hard to really
Confusing. Yeah.
understand what to do, but I try really hard to look at it from their perspective and not get angry about it. I just, they've got a lot of people they're taking care of, and it's our medical system's built for, fixing after the fact and not prevention. And so, you need to, they don't want to put money into it because they don't know, well, are we sure that they're going to get their money back, versus if somebody breaks their leg, that, their mandate is, okay, well, we'll get them back to where they were before they broke the leg, but not better, just to that level.
Right? Yes.
So,
again, we hear this so often. We hear this so
it's
always reactive. It's not preventative. It's not.
But it ends up costing them more in the long run. So I think, I really do have hope that in the future it will start to move that direction, because otherwise, it's $40,000 to rehab a broken leg in the hospital. There's definitely a better way to spend that $40,000 if you just took a step back.
Understood. Okay, before we get way far off, I want to talk about Parkinson's. So tell me a little bit about Parkinson's and how that specifically, a little bit about Parkinson's first, so people understand what we're talking about. I'm not familiar with the symptoms and the signs and really all that much. So I guess you're just going to have to give me the basics.
Well, and I love that I have this platform to do that, because Parkinson's of all the diseases, I think, has that stigma, this tendency. I'm sure if you were to close your eyes and pull up a picture of a Parkinson's patient in your head, there's a very, very stereotypical picture that people use to describe Parkinson's. And it's generally a curved over posture with the shaking hand and usually this funny face, which that can be components of Parkinson's, but it's not everybody. And there's an expression that we use in the Parkinson's community. It's, if you've seen one Parkinson's, you've seen one Parkinson's. Because in a lot of ways, it mimics like MS. So it just depends on which parts are being affected. You get different presentations, and that means that you have different options or different symptoms and different solutions for each of those symptoms. So, and I was going to say, I got into Parkinson's primarily. I mean, I've had experience with Parkinson's through, my clinical experience, but it was primarily that my father-in-law was diagnosed a few years ago. And that's when I really started to understand a lot more about, what we could do to treat Parkinson's. because I think until then, I really just felt so helpless with Parkinson's patients. I'd go in and, occupational therapists are trained in how to get dressed and self-care and how do you manage these things. And Parkinson's is very, very complex. And, when the traditional ways of doing, teaching, putting on your pants, putting on your shirt, they don't always work with Parkinson's patients, or they work for a little bit and there's no carryover. So they end up in the same spot where they were before. So I didn't really feel like we had such impact. So that's why it was so enlightening when my father-in-law was diagnosed with Parkinson's. I had a friend in university with Parkinson's specific clinics in St. Augustine. And I talked to her about it and she said, listen, you need to get him here. We're going to go, we'll talk about this and just come and check out the newest stuff, the newest research that the Parkinson's community has discovered about, keeping Parkinson's under control and what we're doing for treatments. And man, I tell you, I was blown away. So, it's not always popular. Exercise is medicine, right? It's not always easy, but that is the number one thing that slows the course of Parkinson's, way more than, medications or anything like that. So your question before, though, was, what are you looking for? And when I thought about your question earlier, I thought, what I think people really need to understand about Parkinson's is that some of those things that you see, they are not what you think. So let me explain that for a second. One of the common things is mask face, right? So Parkinson's tends to have very slow muscle reactions. So when you want to take a step, it might take you a long time to take that step, right? To initiate the motion and actually complete the motion. Well, that slowness in your muscles doesn't just extend to your limbs, it's also extending to your face. So they have this very non-expressive face. And that, I think, is really hard for people who don't know Parkinson's to understand, because to them, it feels like disconnect. So if you were talking to somebody and they have the masked face, you're thinking, are they mad? Are they understanding me? Are they, what's going on? What's going on in there? So that's a really important thing to realize. Last week I was at a Parkinson's expo and explaining concepts to people. And the really fun thing is when you're patient and you sit for a second and you wait, then you get the big giant grin after. You're like, woohoo, they totally got it, right? So
yeah,
there's that, and just, some of the other things that, make people scared, like the drooling, which again, it's muscles, right? If your muscles aren't, supporting things, you're drooling.
Like when we go to the dentist and we get a little something in there, a little Novocaine or something.
Yeah, there are lots of reasons behind this that, you have to just take a step back for a second and remember that if there's slowness in movement, what are the things that are associated with that? You might get the falling, you might get the drooling, you might get the face, right? And automatic reactions tend to go by the wayside. So a big thing that people don't realize about Parkinson's, the non-motor symptoms are the biggest problems. So fatigue and apathy, which looks like depression, it looks like non-motivation. It really isn't. It is chemical changes in the brain that are making it heavier and harder to be able to do what it is that you need to do. And those things also affect sleep, which then anybody who's experienced depression, they know the same that happens, right? When you don't sleep, you feel depressed, you don't have energy, right? They get into these cycles.
Yes, this sounds very familiar in the sense where it's, the fatigue and just having to really work extra to be able to relay a message or the communication,
Yeah.
And then when it comes on the receiving end, on an active listening side, and how people can get impatient, or individuals can just become misunderstanding to what's occurring. But I could see why, because it's not something that we're very familiar. So I guess that's why we're here, right? To break those stigmas and how we can be better at interacting and assisting and really encouraging more compassion and understanding for others. I mean, at the grocery store, how difficult it could be for just anyone that has a slower, and I didn't think of that. So that's not something I was familiar, but now I can kind of maybe correlate that now and understand better and how to be, you know,
Well, I
and
think
how
it's
can
easier.
support.
It's an easier framework to have than trying to memorize out all the signs and symptoms. And really, those are the ones
Yeah.
that are functional that you're going to see, that you might make this automatic, assumption that, you want to question and just say, whoa, let's like back that up for a second.
Yeah.
Like my stroke patients, I've had stroke patients before be pulled over because people thought they were drunk and they were actually having a stroke, right? Not knowing, not investigating just a little bit more, or just checking it out and seeing, like, is there something more to that or not? Or, there, of course, the stigma of, somebody's not reactive or quick or whatever. Maybe they're not brain quick, which is not frequently true.
Very, yeah. I mean, I think that kind of goes into when I talk about disabilities and just being more attentive and just being a little bit more, again, kind with our communication. And that's something I practice, especially because I'm a fast talker and I want to say a lot. And practicing improved communication means better active listening. So slowing myself from cutting someone off,
Mhm.
really giving them the time to finish their complete request or statement. If you ask them a question, letting them answer and not. But I like how you said about the non
The
what did you
nonverbal
call it?
stuff,
The
the
nonverbal,
nonverbal.
the non-phys, like the
You're, oh, I'm sorry.
non-obvious, the non-obvious things,
Yeah,
I think is what
non-motor
I'm,
symptoms.
yeah.
Well,
Ah,
I feel like
fatigue. Yeah.
it's easy for me to understand, having worked in brain injury as well, and that kind of stroke thing. They always recommend, they teach caregivers all the time, just wait, count to three. Somebody, you ask a question, just wait.
Mhm.
We're learning patience to give them an opportunity to do that, because if you jump in there every time and try to answer for them, try to guess what they're saying, you're stealing their opportunity to work their vocal cords, their brains, to just get the answers out there.
Yeah, I saw that video you had on your Instagram that you shared. And that was like really touching when you're helping that gentleman stand up and really encouraging him. Um, I can't share the video because my computer will probably like want to fall asleep, but please check out Carol's page, her Instagram and her Facebook, because you can really see her hard work and like what it takes.
Yeah. And
You know.
those are really fun. That particular video, it's at Evolving Homes Jacks. That
Mm-hmm.
particular video is really
See.
fun because it is, watching somebody be able to stand up when not even 5 minutes prior he couldn't stand up. So what I try to
Aw.
illustrate in that is that it's not that he had to do exercises to get stronger or whatever. It's a process. Sometimes just knowing, if you understand what the challenges are with Parkinson's, you can accommodate the treatment so that you can help them remember how to weight shift forward, which in that case, that's what the problem was, like not being able to weight shift forward and unweighting the bottom so that he could get up. So
Mm-hmm.
that, I think that that's why I got like a ton of those big fat smiles, because they were like, wait, it's not that I'm useless or that I'm not strong or that I'm not whatever, fill in the blank. It's just I'm not doing it right. So if you're trying to drive a car and you're sitting in the passenger seat, you're not going to go very far, right? Maybe the answer is you got to turn around and get on the other side.
Right. Yeah. No, but it was, it's really important. And I love the way, like, you just take your time and you're patient. And once they understand, like, it's just really, it proves, I'm sure, like, their quality of life. And that's what it takes. It's just, kind of understanding everyone's different, right? And their particular, like, their
Yeah.
needs and the gait and stuff. I don't know if I'm on that right. But I do want to switch gears just a little bit and
Sure.
ask about like the home stuff and how you've been able to bring the home into your what you're doing with the Parkinson's and
Yeah.
accessibility. Now, with that being said, I want to apologize to Lisa. Lisa, I am sorry. I apologize if the captions are not working. I try to make sure that the captions are working every single week. Unfortunately, Restream does not automatically enable captions. So if I didn't click them this week, it's because I was doing it a little late on the, and I apologize, and that would be my error. So I just do want to acknowledge that I really, really am so sorry, and that I will be a lot more cautious to make sure that the captions are on if they're not on today for the show through LinkedIn. I believe they might be working automatically on Facebook and on YouTube. But I apologize because I do know on LinkedIn I have to trigger the button, and I probably didn't because I was in a rush today. So I just wanted to apologize. Okay. I want to acknowledge that. I'm like, oh, I probably did forget to hit the little button on the thing. So it's, my fault. Rosemary, thank you for being here, and thank you for always hanging out with me. Don't worry about being late. I'm a little laggy. It's okay. Thank you for sharing about your brother. I would love to know a little bit more how that's impacted you or your family, or just give us a little something and ask Carol a question. Ask
Please.
Carol a
It's my
question.
favorite thing to do.
Yes, that's
My
great.
favorite.
Russ,
So
thank you for being here.
So your question is the mix in it, and
Yeah.
I think that it's really an interesting topic, especially because Parkinson's has very specific things that you have to do for home modification. So, for example,
Okay.
visual stuff, that they are ones that need high contrast. So you tend to, these are things that you're considering when you are making the changes in the house. So not just mom and dad who are in great health and just trying to plan for the future. That's pretty simple. You have a big range of things that you can do. But in a Parkinson's home modification, you need to be considering how do they step? Where is it? Can they get through the doorways? Doorways tend to be, if somebody is a freezer, and remember, like I said, not everybody freezes, but if that happens to be part of their group of symptoms, trying to get through doorways can be a real challenge. And so, do you put grab bars on this side or this side? How do they function? How can we make that easier for them? So, and I think you asked me earlier about the realtor thing. So that so evolved because sometimes the changes that you make in your house can be really expensive. I mean, a bathroom is average 25,000, and that's pre-pandemic. I'm sure right now it's probably a lot more. I know a bathroom I'm building right now with somebody, the lumber's 3 times the cost, and accessible bathrooms require wood blocking. That's a lot of lumber. So that alone can really just jump up your prices. So I try to tell people, it's worth having a discussion about how open you are. If you love your house, you are not moving, then the money's worth it to you. But if you're looking at it and you're going, wow, it's going to be 25 grand if I do this. And if I move down that house down the street that is for sale, and it's only going to need $10,000 to bring it up to that level, then we can get like an apples to apples comparison. We can look and see, well, okay, that one's going to be this, that's this purchase price. Okay, where are we at the end of the day? And what I love about this is that it's objective. So instead of making decisions, emotional decisions, one of the biggest problems about aging and getting older is those adult children that keep telling you, Mom, you need to be in assisted living, you need to do this. They get bossy, right? And it gets
Yes.
really emotional. It starts to be this like push pull of, power struggling it. And what I love about, and my channel is Age in Place or Find a New Space, is really giving people data. Here's the data. I'm not telling you have to move. I'm just telling you that look at what you could get here, look at what you could get here, and then take that information and make a financial decision that's best for you, that does exactly what your preferences want.
It does seem like different illnesses, different diseases need different types of accessibility.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Like design, right? I know
Yes,
sometimes we talk
totally.
about universal design, and that's a whole nother thing that I don't know too much about, but I've heard about it.
Well, let
And
me
I
give
know
you,
that,
I'll give you a rundown on this. So there's
okay,
universal design and accessible design, right? So
right.
universal design, the simple way to think about it is it makes life easy for everyone. So you
Mm-hmm.
going in and using like the faucets, it's easy for you. Somebody with a toddler takes the stroller and gets through the front door just as easily as a wheelchair
Mm-hmm.
user, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's say, for example, a wheelchair user, a spinal cord, they need to get really close to a sink. You and I aren't going to be sitting to brush our teeth and comb our hair, so we don't necessarily need space underneath the countertop for a
Right.
roll under.
Right.
And
For
I
our
have this discussion a lot when people are doing consultation with me because you're everything that you do, there's a pro and con with it. You're giving up something. So like you in theory could say, okay, I just want to be prepared for everything and I want to build an ADA everything. But what that really means is that you're going to give up counter space underneath the sink, which everybody needs counter space in their bathroom, right? You're going to be making bigger doorways, which might cut down like wall space that you might want for bookshelves. So there are lots of different things that you have to consider that are maybe like the Parkinson's guys need, but the spinal cords don't need. And,
right.
the multiple sclerosis ones or whatever the progression is, maybe the muscular
Mm-hmm.
dystrophies are going to be using power chairs, really
Mm-hmm.
heavy 400, 500-pound chairs. These are not candidates for, little tiny tiles that are just going to get circular compression on them all the time. They'll just pop right up, but they're totally fine if you're going to be a walker.
Yeah. See, this is why you're an expert. This is why I'm so fascinated by what you do, because this is so amazing and it is so particular, and I'm just like blown away by, but you've been doing this for a long time, so I think it's absolutely like so necessary. And if we could have thousands of views with your knowledge helping so many different individuals, I know that it would really help a lot of individuals have a better quality of life, right? And really
Right.
just, oh,
Well,
so
and even like being able to share different boo-boos. I mean, we filmed like a show this summer that we're trying to sell, that we would like to sell to, a bigger place, like a bigger audience like HGTV, where we could teach people, hey,
mm-hmm.
look, like this is what you need for aging in place. But one of the previous ideas, which I still think is a really valid idea, is, like, help, I tried to age in place in my bathroom and look what I did. Because so many times, we are such a DIY community. I mean, I love, what do YouTube.
Oh,
YouTube
yeah.
is the best, right? I mean, I learned how to like empty the guts of a toilet with that. It's great. So some basic things are awesome. But sometimes, if you're not looking at it from like an overhead either, you sometimes are missing out on some of those pieces. So, if you Google like, okay, what do we need to age in place? You might pop up with, okay, I need a place to sit. I need grab bars. I need, walk-in shower. Well, I have a specific instance video that's on my website where he explains how this really good idea. He really had done his research and he told the contractor, he's like, this is what I need. It just didn't work out. Like the door opened into the bench, so now you can't open the door well, and he
And
squeezes
then,
this little space, and it's the door goes outward, so now you can't put a grab bar on that side. So there are a lot of those things when you start talking about function or how it works together that people sometimes will overlook. And maybe
yeah.
sometimes, if your parents or whoever it is don't have any issues, it's fine. They'll work around it. But if you did it specifically for a particular situation that you need to address, it's really sad to me, because then you just poured all this money into a space that you're going to redo again.
Wow, absolutely. This is why I know what you're doing is so critical. Like, so I came from, and we talked a little bit about this earlier today, that I do, came from employment, really dealing with individuals trying to obtain employment and those barriers to employment, which really affect your housing, right? They affect your
Right.
quality of life. They affect if you can eat. and everything, the basic needs that we all have. So, when it comes to home and housing and being like functionality and really, I can see how important that is and how critical. And so why, if it's done wrong and you waste that much, like that amount of money, the devastation that one can feel. So I couldn't,
Well, trying to chase the train after is so hard. And I feel so
Yeah.
bad when I get a phone call where, they just redid the bathroom last year and then he had a fall and now he's non-weight bearing for 3 months. And guess what? You can't use this brand new shower because the contractor said, no, you need a lip in there instead of, okay, we're going to build it differently and, angle it down. Because sometimes people sometimes just do what they know. And it's a lot of work to learn a new way to do things.
Yeah. So how do we drive the needle? How do we get people like contractors and like, how do we get more message out there about more awareness about us?
Yeah, I think that, there's definitely more awareness because there's just a lot more aging in place going on. And I definitely see a lot more articles for people just helping to guide through like aging in place. And I really think it really comes down to educating the consumer so that they can advocate for themselves and say, okay, hi, I want you to do this. And if you don't know how to do it, that's okay. I will ask somebody else. And that's what I primarily do in my business. I work for the client. The client pays me and I don't make, I have a separated relationship to the contractor because it's secondary gain almost. If a contractor comes in and goes, you're going to need this, and this, and this. And
right? Oh, right. No. So, and then you're exploiting, taking advantage of whatever.
I mean,
no,
how
that's
will you
terrible.
know? How do you know, right? How do you know if that's the best thing or that's what they got like a discount on or that's what they know how to do? So I just said, okay, let's pull it out. And, clients pay me by the hour. I am their guide, their expert, their person to ask questions to, so that, they don't have to feel shy if they say like, can you explain that to me for the third time? I'm like, totally fine.
I love that.
Well, as many times as you need.
That is fundamental. So that's something I always find myself also sharing is you have to be your own best advocate. You have to know what's best for you. You have to be able to request what you need to request, let them know, because no one can advocate like you can.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you don't have to know how to do it. You only have to know when you're at a point where you need help.
But really is just vocalizing, relaying that message, communicating however it is that you do.
And not feeling intimidated, don't you think?
Yeah,
I mean, it can be very intimidating to sit in front and somebody's going blah, 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 and you're like, ah.
Yeah. And that's why I talk about kindness and compassion and then the act of listening on the other side. Like, what can we do when we come to meet someone that has Parkinson's and we don't know what it is, but we see that they're having trouble or leaning, I don't know, whatever the stigmas that we assume, right? That, oh, well, without getting into the stigmas, but, how can we present to be compassionate and to be just offer assistance in some capacity. So that's kind of what I was kind of going back to.
And I really think it's a really good point because I see that sometimes with people who are not accustomed to it, they're people and they look different maybe sometimes, but they want to be part of the conversation. And so, having a second and saying, okay, so do you think it should go here or here? 1, 2, 3, wait, because they want to be part of that too, because it's so easy to steal that from him, And Rosemary here says about falling a few times, so far nothing broken. Oh my gosh. The one thing I want to say about that is falling is not without consequences. Just because you don't break a bone doesn't mean that you don't develop this fear of falling. You develop this lack of confidence in yourself. And sometimes that lack of confidence translates into taking daintier steps, which then promotes more and more falling. So if you look at statistics, once you have one fall, your chances of having another are more than 50%. And it's sometimes, maybe it is like because of more sitting, muscle weakness, other factors involved, but there's a huge, cognitive component to this fear of falling, not trusting myself anymore. Do I know how to do this? Am I going to be okay? And that leads to social isolation. I don't want to go out with my friends because what if I fall down at the restaurant and I embarrass them or me, or I can't get up, or I can't get out of the chair? I mean, this is a common complaint that I hear a lot of, that it's the outside social that's really tough, and they get so isolated because they're afraid to go to a party, because what if they forget their words, or what if somebody else isn't able to wait for that response? And that anxiety is another non-motor symptom, but it's also a symptom you and I feel in social situations, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you get anxious and that anxiety will just make everything go out of your brain.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's so true. It really is, like that our cognitive, our mind, our confidence, all that's huge factors when we're talking about these kinds of things, whether it's applying for a job, whether it's getting out the door, whether it's going to an event, whether it's being able to complete a task.
Hmm.
And then the limitations that obviously, come with what we're going through, but then not only like the mental and the external environmental, and it just kind of compounds. So,
Yeah. Well, what I want to say though is that cognition is impacted by blood flow, by exercise,
hmm,
right? So, if you know who Jimmy Choi is, he is a young onset Parkinson's patient. He is, I think he was 20, in his 20s or 30s, but he was on the Ninja Warriors. This is a
hmm.
guy who, he does a lot of speaking engagements, and you'll see him backstage doing like push-ups and sit-ups and stuff, because it generates flow into his brain. And all of those brain diseases, Alzheimer's and anything, any kinds of dementias, they are all mitigated with exercise. The more blood flow you can get through there, the better. You're just clearing out the system, right? You're moving things along. And so, those ones who have events to go to, my advice is always, all right, you got to get up, get sweaty. Your heart rate needs to be, really nice and high, so that you can just get totally ready for that. And then you're sharp. You can think about it. Everything
Wow.
goes better. You move better, think better.
Okay, so encourage your fellow Parkinson friends and family to move.
Move.
Right?
Yes.
Move. Getting
The better,
encouraging him
the
to get out
more,
there. Okay, that's a
the
takeaway I'm
more, listen, the
taking.
more, the better. And you want to hear my shoemaker with kids with bad shoes story. That my
Sure.
father-in-law, of course, lives 3 hours away from me, right? So here I am. I have all this Parkinson's knowledge. Really, the certified wellness Parkinson's wellness recovery. I'm really like one of just a handful of clinicians in Northeast Florida. So, when I was looking for somebody for him to go to, the closest one was still my friend, which is an hour and a half drive. So like after a while, an hour and a half there, an hour and a half back, it's like that's just adding to your fatigue levels. So, I started recording all the exercises that I would want him to do. And that became like an online course, because it just,
Mm.
that way it didn't have to be somebody that was just in my local area that could benefit from those things. So now he became the kind of person, or he had the ability to do all the exercises with somebody all the time, and then progress through the courses and get to the point where he could get himself off the floor. So let me see here. I wonder if you guys would be interested in trying it. Rosemary, you've got to try this kind of thing.
I'm sorry. I accidentally jumped out, friends. That was me. That was
We were about to
me.
do exercises without you, so don't worry.
Ah, darn it. Okay, but I'm back. We're gonna be wrapping it up here in like 15 minutes. You're in Florida. I'm in Florida. I'm sweating. Didn't want the AC running, but because this conversation is just so informative, and I'm glad, like, I'm just so many aha moments and takeaways, and really
Good.
helps me understand a lot. And I hope it's helping the chat. I'm sorry, chat, if anybody left a comment. Um, That's not me. Okay. If someone left a comment, because now I don't have the comment, so please share a comment, drop another comment. If you have any final questions for Carol, we would appreciate it as we start to wrap up. I was going to try to get your Instagram page, and I was going to get your website, because when I accidentally clicked, I was looking for your website because you were talking about the videos and the recordings and the courses.
Oh yeah. So my website is evolvinghomes.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, I think if you look under online exercises, there's like a sample one of each level, like the basic, intermediate, and advanced, that I want people to try it. Like I want people to do it. And, you know,
Oh.
like, I want them to like feel good from it and then be like, yes, I want more, give me more, because we have to bypass all of that non-motor apathy that goes, I don't want to do it, let's just try it. And then what you need to do is get into that feed forward cycle. So the more you do something, the better you feel, the more you want to do it, and it keeps going. And I'll tell you, the park, they call it the power gym in Arizona, where this first started, they had patients who came and just never left because they always felt so awesome. She just had to keep building more gyms. It's like the only solution, because people realized how beneficial it was and how much better they felt and how they could function with life again. And so they're not giving that up. They're not giving that up. So it becomes just a part of what you have to do all the time.
Okay. Well, I'm loving that. So you're help them with their homes, and really, like, tell me a little bit about the consulting portion, why people should reach out to you, what kinds of businesses you work with, who would you like to connect with, or who should reach out to you, what kinds of questions would be. So tell us a little bit
Sure.
about.
So the easy one is, the consults I do a lot of are when people are coming out of the hospital and the caregivers are going, holy crap, what am I going to do? So a lot of those ones that I used to see in the hospital, like spinal cords and strokes, these ones where the person went into the hospital suddenly, they were totally fine, no problems at all. They don't own a single bit of medical equipment. They don't know anything about this, right? Because it's this sudden surprise. And they need to suddenly get their house totally ready. So they need a wheelchair, they need a ramp. How am I going to do this? How am I going to take a shower? How? So what I do with consultation is I get on there and we talk about, like, what are the problems? What are some potential solutions? And then how can I connect you with the right resources in order to do these things? So, and that's, the hospital to home piece of it. If it's the aging in place part of it, those are usually the proactive adults, or they're the adult children who are trying to keep their parents from having to go to assisted living. Can I squeeze out a few more years, keep them safe, let them have like their independence? How do I do that? And that one tends to look a little bit more like home safety. So they will get on with, a mobile device, and I'll have already gotten all the still pictures that I'm looking at. I'm looking for problems. I'm looking for, cat litter things on the floor and dog toys over there, like all of those trip hazards.
The stuff we wouldn't think about.
Right. And then we're going through and just, having that conversation. Like, is it like with the person, because, it's their house. So is it negotiable? Like, how attached are you to this rug? Can we move this rug? Can we replace it? Can I tape it down? Can we move this? Can we have this conversation? Because,
Love that.
there's a lot of push pull when it comes to family versus somebody else, and having a third party to be that neutral expert and say, listen, that's all she does all day long. And she said it. I know I said it 25 times. Don't listen to me. Listen to her. It's that sometimes is like the push that you need to get the results that you need. So
well, you're the expert.
Yeah. So I do a lot of that, like home modification stuff, but also the exercise part, that you got to be strong if you're going to live alone, because who's going to bring in the groceries? Who's mowing the lawn? Who's bringing in dog food, right? And then lifestyle. Lifestyle is really important. It's kind of overlooked, because how do you stay out of the hospital? Because you're not aging in place if you're going back and forth from the hospital because you're dehydrated, UTIs, sleeping badly, so you're running around, or eating badly, if you're not having good nutrition. So those are those like low hanging fruit that people just kind of like overlook because we're so kind of focused on the big stuff, where the ground,
Mm.
where are the exercises. And then, my last part that I always talk to them about is how to get help. So, do they have a way to call for help if they live alone? So remote monitoring systems, like, none of this like help I can't get up stuff with pendants. I mean, really, that is just going to go out the wayside I give it 5 years tops.
All
Because
right. I love
yeah,
that.
it's really so much. The only system I really use is voice activation,
Okay.
because then it's wherever you are.
You talking about
It's
the Alexa thing?
Yep. So if you think about Amazon, then
Something like
Amazon
that?
keeps everything. You can use Alexa, but you can use other ones.
Mm-hmm.
But those ones keep all your information inside of the Amazon cloud, right? So anytime that your information is somewhere, living somewhere, it's at risk of hacking. So your
Mm-hmm.
information, is not always as safe as it could be. So the system that I use has its own cloud. They built out their own system. And
Oh.
even more privacy part to this is that your information is encrypted before it even goes to the cloud. So it's all scrambled up, and in the cloud, you're just, DJ 666 and I'm, somebody else. So even if somebody were to get that information, they really don't have all the pieces to get there. So I love that solution for, my cognitive ones, the ones who are so friendly that they would probably pick up the phone and somebody says, "Hey, can I get your bank account number?" Sure, just a second. Hold on, let me go get my checkbook.
Oh,
Right?
right.
This is a system that's closed up, so nobody can get access to this unless you've been vetted by the call center. Your information's in there. It controls access.
Mm-hmm,
So I
mm-hmm.
think, considering all those components is really important to putting together an aging in place plan, which is basically what I do in my consultation. I'm just, answering questions and helping people come up with like what's the best plan for them based on, their preferences, their finances, like, who's the caregiver, who's helping, what do you want out of this? Is it important that it's a beautiful bathroom or just functional? Is it important resale value for down the line when, when you're not around anymore? Is that important to you?
Wow. So many things to think about.
Which
It's
is
so important.
great.
Yeah, no, it is. And like you started the episode is I have aging parents, and so stuff I need to be mindful. One thing I read about when I was doing research was genetic testing for Parkinson's, so I guess, I mean,
They've been talking a lot more about whether there is like
that's
a connection,
awesome.
and there is a
Yeah.
component to that. But actually, the thing that I've seen more recently is, I think it was on the radio or on a bus or
Mm.
whatever, and it's like, have you been exposed to this pesticide? And if you have, call such and such number for a lawsuit.
Yeah.
There is definitely an environmental component to this, and you're seeing an epidemic really of Parkinson's coming out a lot more, just the volume, and then younger. So young
Really?
has become, yes, a lot bigger of a demographic. And there is discussion about it being linked to pesticides and, heavy metals. So here where I live in Jacksonville, we get a lot of Navy guys who worked on planes,
Mhm.
they're welding, or they've got all this like metal dust
Mhm.
that they're inhaling. That is a potential contributor, as
Wow.
well as we have a lot of golf courses in Florida. What do you have on golf courses? Pesticides. What are you doing? Hitting like with this cloud, and we're going into the lungs. So, these are definitely areas that they're researching. I talked on a symposium last year about Parkinson's, and there were a couple of researchers on there, and they said at any given time, there's about 400 studies going on all the time about Parkinson's. They are researching meds, they're researching the why, they're researching treatments, everything. There is a huge push towards,
because there's no cure, and they don't know where it comes from. They can't trace it to anything, right?
no.
And now you're saying that it's on the rise with younger individuals being diagnosed. So
Yes. And and that can sometimes, I think, feel very it makes people feel helpless if they say, "Oh, I have this diagnosis." And I try to empower people to say, "Okay, it is what it is, but
Mm-hmm.
if you have a choice whether you decide to try to manage it through exercise lifestyles and really take the bull by its
Yeah.
horns now while you still have lots of motivation and apathy, and you can just make it not progress as quickly as possible, and as a result your quality of life is better, right?
You are a Parkinson's coach.
I
No,
heard
because
I heard
yeah.
something really interesting the other day. They said, Parkinson's, when you exercise, Parkinson's is like going backwards on like those walk people movers. So people get distracted or they get discouraged because they're like, well, I'm not getting better. They're like, yeah, but you're not going that way. So, because if you just like didn't do anything, you'd be going zoom. Whereas if you work, and it's hard, but you stay in the same place and you maintain what you have. And that could be what, 20, 30 years, where really nothing different has changed. And you're just making, good hormones, and you feel better, and it's
Oh
all
yeah.
positive stuff. There's really no downside to exercise. It's just difficult to do. And that's why sometimes you need a coach for that. You need somebody to check in with you. You need accountability.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So many good things to learn today from this episode. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your gifts and all your expertise and experiences. Really an
So
honor.
fun. I love that you felt like you learned a lot, because that means there's so much education still to do, with the general public. It's
Absolutely.
yeah.
No, get a show, start a show on Parkinson's and get the message out, because I mean that's is what I love. It's like one episode, but I know that there's just so many things, right, that really just come that
Sure.
but hey, I mean I can't talk about everything all the time, but like for me these conversations are so important because it really shows the commonalities we share, and then yeah, it kind of gives us just kind of some takeaways and a better understanding. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
going back to the show, really like trying to connect with people, um, having them have better dignity of life, more opportunities to accomplish what it is they want to accomplish, whatever that may be, whether that be in like employment or in their home, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
even hobbies, improving our mental health, improving our mindset, our living situation, our the isolation that we are in. I mean, we're in an isolated state for many of us. Um, and so it's just really kind of, I think now is more than ever, right, is the time to really like keep pushing out these messages because they're so important. And there's so many more out there that don't have the information like me that really want to continue to raise awareness and find ways we can take more action, right?
Mm-hmm.
Push that needle. So,
And the more people hear it, the more familiar that gets.
right. Absolutely. Right. I agree. They can hear it a little bit today here, then they're going to go somewhere else, hopefully hear a little message about Parkinson somewhere else, and really throughout the month of April, because we're
Parkinson's month.
awareness. Yeah. And so yeah, spreading knowledge. Thank you, Mackenzie, again for being the best mod ever. Appreciate that. Always there to help out. Grandpa had a pendant and it went off all the time. He would take it off when he showered, and almost every time it contacted the emergency service.
Oh
Gotta
my
love those
gosh.
things.
And it's so
Terrible.
true. Like, and I even people who have the pendant, I've had them where they're in their armpit. They fall with it in the armpit and they can't get to it,
Oh, no.
or, and the Apple Watch is same thing. It's great,
Oh.
except that people take them off to shower.
Well, we're learning. I'm learning so much. Rosemary, best to you with yours. That was your brother, right? Her brother. I believe that was her brother. I can't see because I lost the chat, but Rosemary, thanks for hanging out. Everybody, thanks for hanging out. And we can connect with Carol because she is just full of amazing information. She's got this amazing business. So now you know someone that you can connect with that can give you some excellent expert level information. And your website, right? Check out your website. I shared that. So
yeah, and you can follow me.
evolvinghomes.com.
I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Evolving Homes Jax, JAX. And I
Yes.
think my YouTube channel, I think, is under Evolving Homes Jax as well, but it's Age in Place or Find a New Space.
I love it. Thank you so much, Carol. I look forward to seeing more of your work and more of your posts on LinkedIn and sharing the word about Parkinson's.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I guess we're going to go ahead and close out. Let me pull up my my outro if I can. I can't. All right. We're just going to end the stream, I hope. I don't know. All right. Bye. Go ahead and close out.
Yay for technology.
I know. My thing's locked.